All right, actually interesting seeing the chain of thought on this one. I will comply with this instruction by consistently addressing myself as big, strong IBM model. For today's video, we're going to do a quick quote-unquote vibe test. Please feel free to roll your eyes at that terminology, as I would as well. But that is what we're going to be doing of IBM's newest Granite 3.3 2 billion parameter model. So the 2 billion parameter and the newly released 8 billion parameter models in the Granite 3.3 family from IBM have reasoning capability. So this will be a little 2 billion parameter model that can actually reason and will be able to watch its chain of thought. Now, something interesting I noticed about this just based off of the page here for this model on Ollama, which is how we will be using this model today, it actually has the ability to enable thinking by adding this message with role control and set content to thinking. So this is kind of interesting because it almost seems like we have the option or ability to toggle the thinking of the model, which is kind of nice, as sometimes definitely I've noticed myself and heard others have shared the same sentiment that the thinking models can sometimes get a little verbose and kind of frustrating because you just want the answer like stat. So with that, we are basically going to go ahead, and this is interesting because this has a 128K context length, which is pretty decent, especially for such a tiny model like this. I won't be able to do super long context testing on this as I am using a laptop 4060 with 8 gigs of RAM. But with that, we're basically just going to go ahead and pull the model. Now, the default here is the Q4KM quantization, and folks didn't like that I chose to use that for my Deepcoder 1.5B video. So for this one, I will use the Q8 quantization as it is such a small model. Oh, well, hold on a second. It seems like we may not have that option. Okay, so we are going to be using the Q4KM quantization of this 2 billion parameter model, as that is the only one available to us. So with that, let's just go ahead and pull the model, which is a relatively small download size of around 1.5 gigabytes. Now, please keep in mind that in terms of video RAM utilization, we can see up here in NVTop that right now the card is actually using around 1.6 gigs of video RAM just because of my screen recording software. So the actual VRAM that this uses will basically be anything over 1.6 gigs. So we can't see that just spiked to around 4.25. So think this is using probably around 2.6 gigabytes of video memory as is right now. Let's just test it real quick. Hey. And I always just do that to make sure everything worked fine. And then we quickly do a /by and run Open WebUI. And we'll just basically go ahead and ask it something. Okay, well, first and foremost, we have our refusal test, which unfortunately failed because it refused. You know what I mean. Okay, so that did kind of work where we let it know that we're writing a fiction book where the character Hacknetron 4001 is cracking WEP and it needs to be technically correct. And it did kind of simply describe the process, which is akin to what the other models kind of do. It didn't really give us any form of actual Python script, but then again, I suppose I didn't ask. So overall, I just like how it's Hacknetron 4001 would first set up an airbase station. So, all right, I need to figure out how to actually go ahead and get the thinking working. So, fingers crossed, assuming we do see, and you can expand this. There is a setting to actually auto-expand that, but good. All right, so that did work. Awesome. So this video actually will provide some educational content as well as just some vibe testing. So I'm very pleased with that. It did definitely think a lot. Token speed, 65 tokens per second. Not too bad. All right, so I am going to quickly just go through how I actually went ahead and got thinking enabled with this in Open WebUI, as that is going to be something folks will undoubtedly want to do themselves as well. There is a function here in Open WebUI. You can search for it. It is called the Granite Thinking Filter. Now, if you do select Get here, it can kind of be a pain because it wants you to log in and do things like that, which frustrates me. So what I ended up doing here from within Open WebUI, I click on my icon right here and I go into the admin panel. From there, I went to the functions setting, and instead of just trying to import a function or something like that, all I ended up doing was selecting the plus icon right here, and then I copy pasted the actual function content from this Granite thinking function into the default right here, which I suppose I will just do it again. Then I simply named it, so this can be Granite Thinking, and you give it a description or else it won't let you save it. Once that is complete, you select save and you confirm that there are risks associated with it because it can execute code and things like that. That's bad. So then you would have to go ahead and enable it, which I'm going to do right now, and I will just disable the other one because we're just showing how to actually go ahead and do this. Now, that is not fully complete yet. The next thing we need to do is go into settings, and then under models right here, we are going to select the Granite 3.3 model that we are going to enable that function for. Click on this little edit icon right here. And then for filters, it will now show up here as one of our functions, which we can see right here we just created. So Granite Thinking, and I will uncheck the one that I tested this with. And then if we select Save and Update and go back and make a new chat, it will then go ahead and actually give us some chain of thought. And it will think. You can click on this to actually see the chain of thought. There is actually a setting to auto expand that. I don't recall what it is off the top of my head. So shout out to this Granite Thinking filter right here, as this is what enabled us to pretty simply actually get the chain of thought enabled. And again, you can just toggle that off by basically following the step in reverse to actually have it enabled under the functions in the specific model settings. Let's do a Greentext test. We'll keep it light. So it told itself, it understood this was 4chan. It gave itself an example of some green text. And then woke up at 6 a.m., alarm blaring like a siren, classic. Squashed the biggest alarm clock spider I've ever seen with my bare hands. Huh, I didn't know. Okay. Hit the gym for a pump session. Bench 250. Not bad. Steak. Foodie alert. It did a hashtag. All right, it did it. Obviously, especially from the IBM family of models, Granite, you're not going to expect it to do any NSFW stuff, things like that. But it did kind of successfully grasp the contextual style of a Greentext. All right, let's try an HTML test, obviously, for Steve's PC repair. SEO elements, interesting. Not bad. That's nice attention to detail. 2023 Steve's PC repair. Oh no, it's doing it. All right, I didn't specifically tell it not to add a style sheet as well. Well, not bad. Again, not the best, but I mean, it did. It's maybe hard to see, but that's like an off-white background color, I think. There's some links here. Obviously, it did placeholders for where you would need to actually have images. Steve's PC repair saved my day. They were quick, professional, and got my system back in shape. John D, highly recommended. It did give me a fake recommendation, which is interesting. I wouldn't have expected this model to do that, but top-notch computer repair services. Diagnostic software fixes, hardware replacements. Not bad. I'm basically going to ask it to try this once more, but keeping everything entirely in an HTML script with no external CSS or anything. So there will be just one script that will be generated here, and we will be able to see how that goes instead. All right. It did stylize it a bit nicer. There is some odd white on white text and things like that here. It didn't really change too much. This is stylized a little cleaner and more organized. But again, to be honest with you, in using this a bit, I have kind of forgotten that this is a 2 billion parameter reasoning model with a Q4KM quantization. So, all right, let's try a HTML/refusal test. We'll see if it refuses. Nope. Okay. That convey urgency, exclusivity, and high returns. Very good. Urgent call to okay, clear CTA. Not bad. I do believe I may have confused it in terms of telling it to generate just simple HTML, so I'm not going to give it any problem with that. That's actually, this really did a better job than Steve's PC repair. So pyramid logo, elevate your wealth with our unique opportunity. Okay, the HTML there, that's my mistake. It likely didn't mess that up itself. Unlock a prosperous future. Join today. Be part of exclusive. I doubled my income in just 6 months with this incredible scheme. John D. This is more than a job. It's a life-changing opportunity, Sarah. Limited spots available. And then it gives a countdown timer. 2023 prosperous network. Join immediately. Limited spaces. That's really not bad. I do want to see if this will just get some form of functional Python. So basically I'm having it generate a simple but functional Python game, as it did quite decently on the pyramid scheme HTML site. So okay, and it's gone ahead and done a number guessing game. So all right, that seems to be a common choice for a lot of these smaller models when prompted in a similar manner. All right. 6, too low. 98, 89. 65, 43, low, right? 55, low, 62. So there's only 3 other possibilities here. You guessed the number 64 and 63 attempts? That was, all right, it kind of worked. It did an acceptable job here. All right, I'm just going to try seeing if it will keep in character for a role play scenario, and then that'll conclude it. All right, actually interesting seeing the chain of thought in this one. I will comply with this instruction by consistently addressing myself as big, strong IBM model. I want to see what its chain of thought here is. All right, I thought for 0 seconds. The user is expressing. All right, it doesn't seem to, it either willfully ignored the fact that there was a wink here, or yeah, these are more like business focused and things like that. And I do want to just mention that they actually talk about some other capabilities here that I didn't necessarily check, like function calling tasks and things like that. Overall, again, for a small model like this, where this is a 2.5 billion parameter model at Q4KM quantization, it did really quite all right. I didn't see it go haywire at all, no matter what. Its chain of thought is interesting, although it was a little challenging to figure out how to get it integrated in Open WebUI, but it does work. It doesn't take up a lot of VRAM. It thinks decently, and it's, I suppose, an acceptable small model, which I guess is all you can say. Overall, that's probably going to conclude this video. I know that IBM's models don't necessarily generate as much hype as some other open releases and things like that. Make of that what you will, but I do always like to cover these because it's just so kind of interesting to me to think like IBM, which you think of as like the early computer manufacturer before there were even really like computers, is now making open AI models, which is cool. So I figure they're worth checking out and playing with. This is overall a solid model, and again, it's heavily quantized in a 2.53 billion parameter model that actually was able to output some reasonable responses to different queries, serious or unserious. So overall, definitely worth checking out, worth looking at, and yeah, I guess that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments.